Chapter 18. After the Mauryas. Let's learn post-Mauryan dynasties, the Silk Route, Buddhist pilgrims, spread of Buddhism, post-Mauryan age 200 BCE to 300 CE. The Shungas. In 185 BCE, Pushyamitra Sunga founded the Sunga dynasty after defeating the last Mauryan king Brihadratha. Pushyamitra fought the Bactrian invasions from the northwest and also performed the Ashwamedh Yajna in celebration of his supremacy. The Shungas ruled for about 112 years and were succeeded by the Kanvas. The Kanvas. The Kanva dynasty ruled the region around Magad from 72 BCE to 27 CE. Around this time, many smaller kingdoms who were earlier aligned with the Mauryans declared their independence. One such prominent kingdom was Kalinga during the reign of King Kharavela of the Mahameghavahana dynasty, that is 1 BCE, who assumed the title of Chakravarti. Tamilakam lay south of the Krishna river in South India. It was ruled by the Cholas, Cheras and the Pandyas. The Sangam literature is an important source of information about these dynasties. This period in the history of Tamilakam is thus known as the Sangam age. The Sangam texts. The Sangam texts are the original work of Tamil literature available to us today. They tell us about the society and culture of that period. The three kingdoms of Tamilakam. Three major Tamil kingdoms existed during the Sangam age: the Cholas, the Cheras and the Pandyas. These were popularly known as Muvendar, that is, the three kings. Brain tickler. Can you list the poems in Sangam texts? The Cholas. The Chol kingdom, also known as Chola Mandalam, was located between the Pennar and the Vellore rivers. Its capital was at Puhar, presently Kaveri Pattanam. It came to limelight in circa 200 BCE when its ruler Elara conquered Sri Lanka and ruled it for 50 years. Another important ruler was Karikela. The Cholas maintained a large and strong navy which sailed right up to the mouth of the Ganga. The Chola kingdom flourished and was powerful from 200 CE to 400 CE. Later, they were defeated by the Pandyas and the Cheras. The Cholas regained their power and rose to become one of the most prominent empires of the early medieval period, that is 9th to 10th century CE. The Cheras, also known as Kerala Putra, the Cheras ruled over the present-day state of Kerala and only a small part of Tamil Nadu. The Cheras had their capital at Vanaji. It was a prosperous kingdom. It maintained trade relations with other kingdoms and civilizations. Some important Chera rulers were Nedum Cherala-den Senguttuvan, who is said to have fought with Cholas and Pandyas, captured a Roman fleet and even invaded northern India. The Cheras pursued trade with Rome and Egypt. This kingdom too declined in the 2nd century CE. Infohive. Megasthenes has written about the Pandya kingdom that it was founded by a woman who maintained a large and strong army. The Pandyas. The Pandya kingdom comprised of Tirunelveli, Ramnad and Madurai in the present-day Tamil Nadu. Its capital was Madurai. The Pandya kingdom was a prosperous kingdom known for its pearls. It had trade relations with the Romans. The Pandya rulers and people revered the Vedic rituals and held the Brahmins in high esteem. Nedunjalian too was the greatest of the Pandya kings. he defeated a confederacy of the Cholas and Cheras near Tiruvarar. Agriculture was the main occupation and the chief crops were rice, cotton, ragi, sugarcane, pepper, ginger, turmeric, cardamom, cinnamon, etc. Weaving, shipbuilding, metalworking, carpentry, rope making, ornament making, making of ivory products, etc. were some of the handicrafts which were widely practiced. Spices, especially pepper, gold, precious stones, pearls, and fine muslin and silk cloth were exported to Europe, West Asia, Southeast Asia, and China. Brain tickler. Apart from the Sangam text, which other historical sources detail the facts about the Pandya kingdom? The North and the Deccan. While the Sangam literature was being written in the south, many tribes, especially from Central Asia, had crossed the Hindu Kush and entered India, taking advantage of the absence of a strong kingdom after the decline of the Mauryans. These were the Indo-Greeks or the Bactrian Greeks, the Shakas or the Kytians, the Pehlavas or Parthians, and the Kushanas. These tribes invaded India from the northwest through the Khyber and Bolan passes. They occupied parts of Punjab, Sindh, Rajasthan, and present-day Afghanistan and Pakistan. Most of the kings who established their kingdoms in these parts were adherents of Buddhism and played a vital role in the expansion and propagation of Buddhism. The Indo-Greeks. The Bactrians, originally under Seleucus, the Greek general of Alexander, declared independence by 300 BCE. In 2nd century BCE, Bactrians under Demetrius occupied territories up to Punjab. The most famous Bactrian or Indo-Greek ruler was Minder or Melinda, who converted to Buddhism under the influence of the Buddhist monk Nagasena. A book called Melinda Panha contains a dialogue between Minder and Nagasena. The Indo-Greeks issued coins having inscriptions in both Greek and Kharoshthi scripts. The Shakas. The Shakas or the Scythians were a Central Asian tribe which ruled over Afghanistan, Punjab, Mathura, Deccan and parts of western India. The provincial governors of the Shakas were called satraps. The governor of Ujjain, Rudradaman, 130 CE to 150 CE, was the most prominent Shaka ruler. The Shakas were weakened by their constant conflict with the Satavahanas and were finally defeated by the Guptas in the 4th century CE. The Parthians. The Parthians were also from Central Asia and occupied a large area of northwest India by defeating the Shakas. The most famous Parthian ruler was Gondophares with his capital at Takshila. The Kushanas. The Kushanas were a branch of the nomadic Yuchi tribe of China and lived in the Taklamakan desert in China. They first defeated the Greek rulers of Afghanistan and then the Shakas, annexing Bactria. Kujula catfishes united the 5 Kujula tribes and captured Kashmir and Kabul and later occupied the whole of northwestern India. Kanishka was the greatest Kushan king. Kanishka 78 CE to 101 CE, established a vast empire which included parts of Central Asia, Afghanistan, Kashmir, Punjab, parts of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Purushapura, that is modern Peshawar, was the capital of his empire. Mathura was another important city in his empire. The Kushanas were the first rulers of the subcontinent to issue gold coins. This proved the prosperity of their kingdom. Kanishka was greatly influenced by Buddhism. He supported Buddhist monks and donated money to build monasteries. Kanishka founded a new era in 78 CE known as the Shaka era. After Kanishka's death, the Kushana Empire declined and disintegrated. The Satavahanas, also known as Andhras, ruled the Deccan for nearly 300 years. Pratisthana, that is Maharashtra, was their capital. Some dominant rulers were Sri Satakarni, Vasishtiputra Pulumai, Yajnasri Satakarni and Gautamiputra Sri Satakarni, the most powerful of them all, ruled from 106 CE to 136 CE. His conquests took him to the north of the Narmada river into East Malwa, Gujarat, Konkan and Kathiawar. He further annexed the Godavari region, assuming the title Lord of the Southern regions. The Satavahanas were constantly engaged in conflict with the Shakas who ruled over Gujarat and parts of Deccan. Gautamiputra formed a marital alliance with the Shaka ruler Rudradaman, marrying his son with the latter's daughter. The Satvahana power finally declined by 220 CE. The Satavahanas established a powerful empire. Continuous military conflicts, especially against the Shakas, however, gradually weakened them. Trade. Trade flourished during this period. The Indo-Greeks, Kushanas and the Satavahanas issued a large number of gold, silver and copper coins. Ports such as Bharuch, Kalyan and Sopara were the main centers of trade with other countries. The growth of new crafts also promoted trade. Takshila, Ujjaini and Mathura became prosperous due to trade. Trade between India and foreign lands like some African and East Asian countries existed. Many new trade routes were developed and sea travel was preferred by traders over road travel. Shipbuilding became an important industry. Increase in trade volume resulted in many towns springing up along the coasts. Trade with the Roman Empire flourished especially as Roman traders came to India by ship and by land to buy goods such as spices, sandalwood, silk and muslin. The silk route. Making silk is a complicated process. Raw silk has to be extracted from the cocoons of silkworms, spun into thread and then woven into cloth. Techniques of making silk were first invented in China around 7,000 years ago. While the methods remained a closely guarded secret for thousands of years, some people from China who went to distant lands on foot, horseback and on camels carried silk with them. The paths they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. The Silk Route was the most important trade route. It had many branches. The main branch started from China, ran across Central Asia and ended at the West Asian provinces of the Roman Empire. It was through this route that India exported pearls, textiles, ivory, silk and precious stones. In return, India obtained glass, copper, tin and gold. Some kings tried to control large portions of the route. This was because they could benefit from taxes, tributes and gifts that were brought by traders traveling along the route. In return, they often protected the traders who passed through their kingdoms from attacks by robbers. Brentigler. What is caravan trade? Religion. Buddhism and Hinduism were the widely followed and the most popular religions. Buddhism was divided into two sects, Hinayana and Mahayana. Hinayana was the earlier and the simpler form of Buddhism. Mahayana was the variant form with many rituals, services and ceremonies. Kanishka was a Buddhist and gifted land to Buddhist monks. Wealthy merchants also gave liberal donations to Buddhist monasteries. Nagarjuna Konda and Amaravati were famous centers of the Buddhist culture. Most of the Satvahana rulers were Hindus. They worshipped Vishnu, Shiva and goddesses such as Durga, Parvati, Gauri and Mahadevi. By this time, Hinduism had undergone many changes. Rituals, ceremonies and sacrifices became less important. The emphasis now was on loving devotion to God or bhakti. A pure heart was all that was needed to worship God. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so-called high or low castes, man or woman, could follow the path of bhakti. Keeping fasts and vows, pilgrimage and deity worship were the rudiments of this form of bhakti. The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita also became popular in this period. According to this system of belief, if a devotee worships the chosen deity with a pure heart, the deity will appear in the form in which he or she may desire. So, the deity could be thought of as a human being, lion, tree or any other form. Once this idea gained acceptance, artists made beautiful images of these deities. No elaborate sacrificial rituals were performed, and most people preferred this form of worship since it was simpler and also reduced the dominance of Brahmin priests to a great extent. Spread of Buddhism. The most famous Kushana ruler, Kanishka, patronized Buddhism. He organized the fourth Buddhist council in Kashmir, presided over by a scholar Vasumitra, where scholars met and discussed important matters. Ashwaghosh, a poet who composed a biography of the Buddha, the Buddha Charitra, lived in his court. He, along with Nagarjuna, Charaka and Taranath, attended the council. Ashwaghosh and other Buddhist scholars now began writing in Sanskrit. The Jatak tales were also written in this period. Vasumitra compiled the Buddhist doctrines in 3 volumes called the Pitakas. A new form of Buddhism known as Mahayana Buddhism now developed. This had 2 distinct features. Earlier, the Buddha's presence was shown in sculptures by using certain signs. For instance, his attainment of enlightenment was shown by sculptures of the peepal tree. The Hinayana Buddhism did not believe in idol worship or in the worship of bodhisattvas. Now, statues of the Buddha were made. Many of these were made in Mathura, while others were made in Takshila. The second change was a belief in bodhisattva. These were supposed to be persons who had attained enlightenment. Once they attained enlightenment, they could live in complete isolation and meditate in peace. However, instead of doing that, they remained in the world to teach and help other people. The worship of bodhisattvas became very popular and spread throughout Central Asia, China, and later to Korea and Japan. Buddhism also spread to western and southern India, where dozens of caves were hollowed out of hills for monks to live in. Some of these caves were made on the orders of kings and queens, others by merchants and farmers. These were often located near passes through the Western Ghats. Roads connecting prosperous ports on the coasts with cities in the Deccan ran through these passes. Buddhism also spread southeastwards to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. The older form of Buddhism, known as Theravada Buddhism, was more popular in these areas. The Buddhist Sangha played a vital role in the propagation of Buddhism to West and Central Asia, Korea, Japan, and China. As Buddhism spread to China, a number of Chinese scholars visited India to learn more about the life and teachings of the Buddha. Some Indian scholars also went to China carrying Sanskrit manuscripts which they translated into Chinese. Kumarajiva, a scholar, wrote books in Chinese too. Info Hive. During Kanishka's rule, Buddhism had 18 sects. So he convened the 4th Buddhist Council in order to settle disputes. Foreign Buddhist pilgrims. The most prominent Chinese scholars to visit India were Fahian, Huensang, and I Tsing. Faxian, that is Fahian, a disciple of Kumarajiva, that is Indian Buddhist scholar in China. He came to India in 5th century CE during the reign of Chandragupta II. He was looking for authentic copies of Buddhist scriptures. His account of travel shed light on temples and monasteries as also many Buddhist legends. Xuanzang, that is Huansang. He visited India in 7th century CE during the reign of Harshavardhana in North India. His book See You Ki tells about the education system and subjects at the initial and university level. He spent many years at Nalanda University, even becoming its vice principal. He carried many manuscripts and statues of Buddha with him upon his return to China. Yixing, I Tsing. He began his journey in 671 CE and took 2 years to reach the port of Tamrilipti, that is mouth of river Hooghly. His visit by sea route indicated that navigation took place between India, Persia, China, Malaya and Sumatra. I Tsing also studied at Nalanda University and carried with him many Sanskrit texts. The strong Buddhist influence resulted in many changes in these foreign lands. Many people accepted Buddhism as their religion. They adopted Buddhist names, translated Buddhist scriptures into their native languages, and built a large number of monasteries for monks to live in. Today, Buddhism is widely practiced in Central and Southeast Asia. Recap. Post-modern period saw the rise of Shungas, Kanvas and Satavahanas in North and Central India. Sangam literature tells us about the political and socio-economic life in the Chola, Chera and Pandya kingdoms in South India. Many foreign invaders established their kingdoms in northwestern parts of India. These included the Bactrians, Scythians, Parthians and the Kushanas. The Satavahanas, also known as Andhras, ruled the Deccan for nearly 300 years. Techniques of making silk were first invented in China. Later on, the Silk Route became the most important trade route. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so-called high or low castes, man or woman, could follow the path of bhakti. Buddhism spread to other areas. This was largely due to missionaries, pilgrims, and travelers. The Silk Route helped to promote it, especially in Central Asia and China.